Hi everyone, this is Eran Stern, and this time I want to show you something a little bit different than usual. What I'm going to do is show you a technique how to create an extreme slow motion using only stills frames. We're going to use a commercial which was kindly supplied to me by a famous studio in Israel, and the name is JCS Post-Production. The initial stands for Jerusalem Capital Studio, and they are doing fantastic work. This is one of the 3 main studios in Israel, and I recommend you to check their website and see what they're offering if you want to be a little bit inspired by work from Israel. Anyhow, in order to achieve those extreme slow motion, they choose to use a plugin from Revision named Twixtor Pro. This is a fantastic plugin for extreme time remap and situations like this. Hopefully, after seeing this result, you might consider it to be part of your toolbox as well. So first off, let me open the final render here, and we have 4 shots. We are not going to cover each and every one of them, but at least 2 of them I want to show you. So let's start with this one, and this is of course the final spot. So I will double click in order to open it on a QuickTime player, and I want to mute the sound because it's in Hebrew and it doesn't really matter for this one. So let me just play it for you for a moment. Okay, and of course you can see the extreme slow motion of the foreground and the background element before the phone is getting into the frame. And this is the interesting part. All of this extreme slow motion is captured via a Canon EOS 1D Mark III. So let me show you the workflow they used because I think it might come handy for you as well. Okay, so we'll close this final render folder, move to the cosmetics folder here, and of course I reorganized the project just for the sake of demonstration. It was a little bit more complicated than what I'm going to show you here. So I will open the high-res Canon file, and just before we'll begin, I will highlight one of these shots and then right click on it and choose to reveal in bridge. Okay, so this is the folder that we saw back in After Effects, and these are all the photos they took. And of course these photos are huge. This is the size, it's 5616 by 3744 pixels, much more than we need for every video environment production. But anyhow, I want you to take a look at the date file modified. So this is where they actually clicked on the camera to take the photos. So of course this was shot with a still camera, and each time the cameraman clicked, you can see there's a 3-second gap between each frame. So those girls are performing, basically they were performing in real time, and with each click or sequential clicks, this camera just took another shot. So this whole action was basically happens during 10 frames or so. That's the amount of action that this video or this action was captured in. And of course, because we have those gaps, it was a little bit longer than that, but basically a very, very short sequence. And this is the trick here. We want to use these frames in order to really slow down those shots. So back in After Effects, what I already did, basically what they did, is reduce those JPEGs file from the camera, those RAW files, sorry, to a JPEG sequence, which is also bigger than what we are going to use, but it should hold enough information for us if we want to zoom in or out into the frame. So this is basically the same images, but now they are 1500 by 1000. So the first stage I'm going to do now is select the first image in the folder and then the last one, right? 10 images, and then drag them over to the Make New Comp icon. And here I want to make sure I'm going to create a single composition. I want to make sure that every one of these is only 1 frame long because this is what I need. And I also want to make sure that I'm going to sequence the layers. Just like that. And After Effects will build a nice composition for us. And we can actually create a short RAM preview just for you to see more or less the real-time playback of this shot. Alright, so we have one frame of each. Now what we want to do here is basically reduce it just for the sake of this demonstration. So I'm going to the composition window, choose composition settings, and for this example I will choose the PAL D1 square pixel aspect ratio, and also let's name this 3 gals. Then we're going to choose OK. Now, of course, we want to reduce the frames of everything here. So I'm going to select the first one, or maybe just select everything by pressing Command or Control A. And then under layer, I'm going to go to the transform and set everything here to fit to the comp. Okay, so this is the basic setup that we are going to use. Now I'm going to take this 3 gals composition and drag it to another composition, so we will have only one layer of our video, or it's basically a video but composed out of still frames. Now I want to reduce or maybe slow down the playback of it. So for that I'm going to once again come back to the composition settings dialog, and I'm going to change it to say 6 seconds. So now if you're going to zoom out, then we will see that this is basically everything that we have. This is all the material, and from here until the end we don't have anything. So just let's also change maybe the background color here to be black. It will be more obvious. Now we can see that we don't have anything. Okay, so in order to generate this extreme slow motion, what we want to do is create a new solid in our timeline. So going to the layer menu and choose new solid. And I will name this solid Twixtor and choose OK. And now to that solid, I'm going to go under Effect, Revision Plugins, and apply the Twixtor Pro plugin. This plugin has a lot of settings, even more than the regular Twixtor, and we will use the Pro settings in a minute. First, we need to define which is the source control for us. So instead of using the same layer, we need to tell the plugin to operate on the 3 gals layer that we have below. Now we need to tell it how to work. If you require to work in fields, you can set it here. I'm not going to do it. I will also change the input frame per second to the relevant frame per second I need, which is 25 in my case. I want to make sure it will fit on the frame rate of this composition. And now I'll have to tell the plugin how to work. So of course I want to use the motion vector capabilities of this plugin, so I'm going to set it to best. And now I want to record keyframes for the output control in order to slow down the time. So I'm going to change it from speed to frame number. It will be easier for me. And now I will set a keyframe at the first frame with the 0 frame here, going to the last frame here and set it to frame number 9, which is the last frame of my composition. And this is basically it. So now Twixtor will create, if you will see, a mix between those frames, and it will generate an extreme slow motion going from, let me just show you, from the first frame, okay, to the next one. Instead of jumping it like this, it will basically blend them beautifully together. So we'll get a very nice and subtle and also extreme slow motion result. But we do have problems when we are fast forwarding, not so fast, but when we are forwarding to this frame, for example, and you can see that the changes between this frame to this frame is a little bit heavier or extreme in the area of the hand. So luckily we are going to use the cell phone and hide this from view. But if this is the case for you and you want to try to fix it, then you can try and change the frame interpolation and the warping method for the plugin. So instead of blend, which basically performs a bidirectional warping and then blends the resulting 2 warped images together, I'm going to use a motion weight blending. The motion weight blending attempts to minimize the softening effect that happens when you create an extreme slow motion like I'm showing you here. So this might help to generate a little bit smoother result. If this is not the case and you have access to the pro version of the plugin, you can also try different kind of warping techniques. Now, I'm not going to cover everything here. I'm just going to tell you what I'm choosing, and this will be the second one, inverse with smart blend. And just to let you know, the inverse is going to warp images that are calculated using an inverse mapping method. There is also a forward method here, which I find to be a little bit more slow, but again, it might be a thing of trial and error for you until you get the result that you're after. In this case, I'm going to choose inverse with smart blur, and these settings will take, of course, more time than the inverse setting, but again, it is faster than the forward setting, and it also adds the smart blend option, which gives a better result on a pan or zoom, or when other objects are, coming in or out of the frame. So if something is entering the frame or exiting the frame, you should get a better result using this option. And let's just check it here. And I think it creates a smoother render for us. Once again, we are only interested in the area here in front of us. So in order to check the result and see how this plugin is performing, let's move to full screen here and create a RAM preview. And as you can see, look at the movement of these girls, of these beautiful girls. There is an extreme slow motion and it's happening very, very smoothly. And just remember that all of this is coming from a still camera, not the expensive phantom camera equipment or some red equipment, which of course might generate a smoother result, but using this kind of method, you can really get an extreme slow motion movement. And if you are willing to block some of the areas of your shot, then you are all ready to go. So this is basically it. What I want to show you now is the rest of the progress. So just to show you how everything was combined together, of course, the next stage was cutting the green out of this frame and then adding some crowd at the back. And this is the final composition, more or less. And I just want to show you the layers. I will turn them on one by one. So now here we have the same idea. This is the crowd that is behind. And once again, the technique is similar. So there are freeze frame, all slowed down using the same method that I showed you right now using the Twixtor plugin. And then on top of it, there's 3 girls. And this time a keylight plugin used to cut off the green behind them. And then of course we added few layers of blur and depth of field, some glow fix and levels and few colorize effect. These are all basic adjustment layers with the level effect and sometimes the hue and saturation effect or the glow, things like this. And then there are also the hand, which is basically a still frame of a person who is, pulling the phone right in front of us. And of course, there was a screen replacement and a different graphic was placed here on top of this cell phone. And on top of everything, there is also a camera movement. So we'll get some nice, like a zoom in effect. And as soon as this hand is reaching in, all of this crowd is blurred out. And of course, this also solved the problem that we saw with the middle girl hand. So once again, if we're going to take a look at the final render here, let's open up the cosmetics render. Once again, I will lower the volume. You know what? Let me just play to you with the volume and then we will speak about it.
144 ב-SMS. מסמסים ומוצאים אנשים ועסקים.
So as you saw, with everything coming together, it looks just fantastic. And this is, of course, just a 5-second spot. So they used the same technique, creating several others. For example, this one, the bench was more or less the same idea. So they took few actors sitting on the bench. And then once again, we can see the final result here. The extreme slow motion is very, very obvious here. Let me show you another example. Once again, I will lower the audio here. As you see, the same principles applied as well. So we've got an extreme slow motion. Everything here, all was shot using the still camera, and then using the Twixtor plugin, it was slowed down. And of course, we've got another one. And just to show off a little bit, let me open it and just go by the details one by one. So we have the first stage here. And this is again the same principle. So we've got a couple of football players, and these are the freeze frames. Okay, so this is the movement, very jerky and very fast, obviously. Then add the Twixtor plugin to it. And of course you can add more keyframes here. So you don't only limit it to doing it in a linear fashion. So you can go forth and back. And this is again the result from it. Instead of me scrubbing it, let me just show you the render for this comp so you can see. Okay, once again, extreme slow motion and a freeze at the end, and see how beautiful it is. It's hard to imagine, it's hard to believe that this was shot with a still camera, because the movement and the blending is very, very nice. Alright, and then of course we took everything, or I should say they took everything and cut the key out of it. In this case using once again the key light filter and the master creation here, the master timeline. Of course host a few more details which involve like football and something here at the gates. And if we take a look at, this is very interesting, if we're going to take a look at the custom view here, you will see there's also some kind of depth in this scene, which helps to sell the shot even better. And this is of course the final render of it. So let me show you once again how it looks.
144 ב-SMS. מסמסים ומוצאים אנשים ועסקים.
So once again, you see a very simple method using a clever solution, for my opinion at least, in order to help to create these fantastic 4 short spots. Alright. So once again, I want to say thank you to Dan and Doron from JCS Post. And until next time we'll meet, this is Eran Stern for Creative Cow saying goodbye.